At the Temple of Matrimonial Fate, I found a fortune slip on the ground. Since obtaining these slips is no easy feat, I decided to wait for its owner. My best friend called me an idiot for it. She said the person might have discarded it on purpose. To my surprise, the owner soon came looking for it, and he turned out to be Julian, the son of the wealthiest family in Jing City. We fell head over heels in no time. Julian was the complete package, devastatingly handsome, impeccable character, and from an incredibly wealthy family. My best friend grew jealous that I'd landed a rich man and was living the high life, so she falsely accused me of stealing the lottery ticket. When I called her for help, she even spread vicious rumors to Julian, which led to me being brutally beaten to death by his intensely possessive nature. In this life, she was quick to snatch up that lottery ticket herself, finally getting the perfect match she'd always dreamed of. Bong. The temple bell's chime jolted me awake. A red fortune slip appeared in my hand, and I immediately flicked it away, but Luna, standing nearby, swiftly bent down to snatch it, shoving me aside as she exclaimed, "Whose marriage fortune slip is this?" The scene began overlapping with my previous life, except this time it wasn't me who picked up that fortune slip. Luna sneered at me for meddling in others' affairs and walked off without waiting for me to find the owner. I did a good deed, yet ended up suffering a tragic fate. 1. Luna's eyes kept darting around, looking genuinely anxious to find the owner. "Where's Julian? Where is he?" Suddenly, I heard a voice from another dimension. It was Luna's inner thoughts. "She's a reincarnated soul too." A gentle male voice spoke up behind me. This is what I dropped. "It's Julian." Even though I knew I'd been reborn, hearing that voice still sent a chill down my spine. I shrank behind Luna, trying to make myself less noticeable. Unlike me, Luna didn't seem frightened by the voice at all. She actually stepped forward with excitement. "Is that a fortune slip for love? Don't lose it, or you might never find a wife." Her tone was playful and lively, full of youthful energy. "No need. I think it has already helped me find it." Julian had a clean-cut appearance, with a touch of compassion and gentleness in his eyes, the very image of an upright gentleman. Not to mention his family was wealthy. One could say his speech and demeanor were nothing short of refined. Luna was instantly captivated, shooting me a triumphant sidelong glance. "He finally sees me. My lucky days are about to begin." Seeing Julian gaze at Luna with that infatuated look made my heart race non-stop. It was that same devoted expression that had fooled me before, making me trust him wholeheartedly. In our past life, she was always jealous that I had such a devoted boyfriend. She claimed I just got lucky finding that note, then went around accusing me of stealing it and pretending to have found it. But Julian didn't believe her back then. Maybe he didn't care how that note ended up there. He only cared about me. He followed me everywhere, his eyes never leaving me for a second, as if he wanted to absorb me into his very being. In my past life, I was beaten to death after Luna reported me for fleeing his sight without permission, fabricating lies that I had eloped with someone else, which led to him tracking me down. Now if Luna wants this prime marriage arrangement, she's welcome to it. Nothing would please me more, but Iris, will hold both of them accountable for their betrayal, and I swear they will pay the price. To show his gratitude for Luna's small favor, Julian made a point of inviting her for coffee. She was obviously thrilled by the offer, but she turned to me with an apologetic look. "But my friend is still here. Let's take a rain check. How about we exchange contacts and meet up another time?" Luna was playing hard to get, hoping to pique Julian's interest more quickly. Julian finally glanced my way, intending it to be brief, but then his eyes locked on me and he said, "Why does this friend seem so familiar to me?" His words nearly drove me insane, as if that bone-deep pain was still coursing through my body. Not only was I startled, but even Luna's heart leaped into her throat. I lowered my head and said, "I have one of those common faces that resembles everyone a little. I just remembered something urgent at home. Luna, I should get going." But seeing how timid I was acting, Julian quickly lost interest in me and turned his attention to Luna. I finally breathed a sigh of relief as they disappeared from view. That evening, Luna stood at my doorstep calling my name, then shyly confessed, "Iris, I'm going to start seeing someone." I gasped. "So soon?" While studying my expression, she replied, "Yes. It feels rushed to me too. But Julian says I'm his destiny, that we're meant to be together. And do you know who he really is?" "Who?" I played along, feigning ignorance. "It's the Julian family, the wealthiest family in the capital. Soon I'll be living the life of a wealthy socialite." Watching her beaming with happiness, I couldn't help but mutter to myself, "I'm afraid you might not live long enough to enjoy that fortune." Ever since that day, Luna's mother would drop by my house whenever she passed by just to show off. She'd look down at me and say, "Iris, you should just settle for any decent man and get married. Not everyone is as fortunate as my Luna to find a boyfriend who's handsome, kind-tempered, and comes from a good family." Public opinion has already turned overwhelmingly against her. By the time Luna senses something's wrong, there'll be no escape. Just like when I tried to break up with Julian, everyone said I was being ungrateful and spoiled. Julian would just smile through my hysterical accusations, never contradicting me in front of others, making me look even more unreasonable and dramatic. Luna always comes to me with stories about her and Julian, even telling me about their kisses. She watched every subtle shift in my expression, silently thinking to herself, "You were with Julian in your past life. But this time I've taken him from you. Too bad you'll never know how the boyfriend who loved you so deeply last lifetime could love me just as much." She was lost in her own cliché fantasy of two women fighting over one man, with her as the victor. I never had any intention of competing with her. Honestly, if she wants it, she can have the whole lot for all I care. Iris, look at all the stuff he bought me again. I told him not to, but he just wouldn't take no for an answer. So annoying. Luna complained about it being annoying, but secretly she was absolutely thrilled. "These must be really expensive, right? I've never seen anything like them," I said, feigning admiration. "Julian has zero creativity when it comes to gift giving. The only reason he has one of everything is because he can't be bothered to put any thought into his presents." Luna started preening again at the mention of this. "They're all designer brands, ridiculously overpriced. I really don't see the point in buying this stuff." Then she turned to me with feigned concern and asked, "Why don't you pick a couple of things?" The thought of anything from Julian disgusted me, so I quickly shook my head and refused. It'd be a waste to give such nice things to me. I wouldn't even know how to appreciate them, too. Luna promptly took the items back. She never really intended to give me anything anyway, she just wanted to show off. If you're looking for a boyfriend, this is exactly the kind you want: gentle, generous, and completely devoted to me. Even Luna herself hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. It turned out that fortune slip truly had magic. It could make Julian easily fall for whoever picked it up. I heard her cursing me in her heart. "It's all because Julian had eyes only for you in our past life. Now I'll make you watch our happiness with your own eyes. Bitch, bitch, bitch." I let out a cold laugh. This Luna, she just couldn't stand to see anyone doing better than her. "You're right, I'll definitely tell you when I get a boyfriend." That actually makes sense. Julian likes people with clean slates. If I start dating someone, he'll never look at me again. A flicker of disdain crossed Luna's eyes as she thought, "What kind of bottom-of-the-barrel guy could you possibly find, without Julian?" "You're nothing." The next day, I went to see Luna and told her I was seeing someone. "There's Jasper, who's always flown under the radar in his past life, utterly ordinary and unremarkable, yet there's a vibrant spark of life in him." Luna burst out laughing at the sight. "Iris, just because you're jealous seeing me in a relationship doesn't mean you should jump into one with the first guy you meet. He's just some dead-end worker. How much could he possibly earn breaking his back every month? I'll have a word with Julian later. We can get your boyfriend a job at his company. The pay would be better, and at least it's a Fortune 500 firm. Sounds way more impressive when you talk about it. Hurry up and marry him already, then you two lovebirds can pop out another little popper." She talks like she looks down on him, but deep down she's practically shipping us. "Oh, by the way, Iris, Julian invited me to meet his parents tomorrow. What should I wear?" Luna's attention quickly shifted back to Julian, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of happiness being within reach. They met each other's parents after knowing each other for just 5 days. These days, Julian has been picking her up in luxury cars every day. Each time she comes back, she's loaded with designer bags and packages, living the high life. Luna's mom started coming over to my place even more often, and her smug, boastful attitude was just laughable. "Iris, you have no idea how much his mom adores me." Luna extended her hands, revealing a fine emerald bracelet adorning her wrist. "They even said I was the daughter-in-law chosen for them by the matchmaker god, that it was fate itself. They were so eager they'd have had Julian marry me the very next day." She grinned from ear to ear. "The same scenario played out in my previous life, but being more cautious. I felt things were moving too fast and didn't agree to it, so I asked curiously, 'Are Julian's parents at home?' Yes, and his father is nothing like his stern TV persona, unbelievably kind. See this bracelet, it's premium jade, worth at least several $100,000. I glanced sideways at the bracelet. If genuine, it could easily be worth close to 10 million. In my previous life, I never met Julian's parents. They must have known about their son's mental health issues. Why else would an elite family of such status invite a girl he'd known for merely 5 days into their home and gift such expensive jewelry? Once I marry him, the first thing I'll do is replace that housekeeper of his. She's old, clueless, and has the nerve to boss me around. Who does she think she is? She's been here so long she started believing she owns the place. She's just a glorified maid. I'll make sure she learns her place and understands the gap between our social standings." Luna lifted her chin, her eyes filled with contempt. I watched coldly from the sidelines. She truly had no idea. In wealthy households, you can't just casually replace a long-serving housekeeper. The longer they've been with the family, the more invaluable their status becomes. I'm quite happy with everything about his place except the decor. It's a bit dated. All that solid wood everywhere, so old-fashioned, but Julian says we won't be living there after we're married. He's got a huge penthouse downtown that we'll decorate entirely to my taste. Luna chattered on beside me about her future plans, already acting as if she'd married into the family. I just stared at her handbag without saying a word. There's no way Julian would let his prey wander around unsupervised. I know his possessive nature better than anyone. He could have hidden surveillance devices on Luna's purse, her shoes, even that pigeon egg-sized diamond necklace he gave her. Once he sets his sights on you, there's no escape, unless you're dead, but she would never be allowed to marry into the Julian family. In my past life, I overheard Julian talking to his parents on the phone while I was trying to run away, so all these years, the reason he hadn't married me wasn't about timing. It was because if I died after the wedding, it would be considered bad luck. Plus, it would unnecessarily tarnish the Julian family heir's record with the stigma of widowhood. They simply didn't see the point. Well, they're loaded anyway. Julian can date whoever she wants. If she dies, it's just her own bad luck. Some people aren't meant to enjoy the good life. Luna saw me staying quiet and silently scoffed at my foolishness, thinking I was just green with envy. I just smiled without saying a word. Oh, come on, you should go. Luna kept pestering me over the phone, trying to get me to join the gathering with Julian's friends. I know she's just feeling resentful because I turned down her previous invitations and missed witnessing her happiness in person, but having finally broken free, why would I recklessly put myself in harm's way again? Iris, I'll be upset if you don't come soon. Luna pretended to scold playfully. I've sent Julian to pick you up. He's almost at your building now. Hurry downstairs. I shot up from the bed and leaned over the windowsill to look down. Sure enough, a black Passat was approaching. I couldn't help but snap. Luna, what are you doing? Julian is your boyfriend, and I already have a boyfriend. Luna on the other end was unfazed. Oh please, he'd do anything I say, whether it's picking you up or fetching Neza himself. He's that obedient. 3. Suddenly, Luna's voice took on a strange tone, and soft panting sounds drifted through the phone. In an instant, she hung up the phone right in the middle of my protests. I was stunned. How could she have the nerve? If I'm not mistaken, she's probably at Julian's frat party right now, surrounded by his friends, and yet she's openly fooling around with someone else. She's practically digging her own grave. To avoid making a strong impression on Julian, I just threw on a denim jacket and went downstairs without a stitch of makeup. He was the only one in the car, but I still got in the back seat. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror and said hello. But I just gave a non-committal hum and started scrolling through my phone, treating him like any other driver, but my hands were trembling slightly, and even from the backseat, I could smell the distinct metallic tang of blood. Just as I expected, we spent the first half of the journey in silence. Just when I thought we'd make it to the destination quietly, Julian spoke up. Miss Iris, I don't know why, but from the very first moment I saw you, I felt an overwhelming sense of familiarity. As if I've met you somewhere before. Hearing this, I looked up in surprise. Just as his eyes met mine in the rearview mirror, a cold sweat instantly broke out on my forehead. I've never met you before, I said, forcing calm into my voice. Maybe I seem familiar because I'm friends with Luna. His expression in the rearview mirror softened slightly at the mention of Luna's name. Maybe so. Then the WeChat message I'd sent Jasper finally paid off. He called me. We talked all the way until we reached our destination, and I only hung up reluctantly when we arrived. Julian didn't get another chance to make small talk with me after that. It was an extravagantly decorated KTV, likely owned by one of those rich second-generation heirs. They booked a massive private room with dazzling, almost blinding lights. Luna was tipsy, slumped in a corner of the couch with no one around her. Her clothes were slightly disheveled, and she carried a cloyingly sweet scent. Seeing this, Julian approached her, gently caressed her face, and called her name. It took Luna a moment to respond, gazing at Julian with a dazed expression before leaning in for a kiss. Luna's hands grew restless, wandering downward toward Julian without any regard for the others present. Julian's expression darkened as he shoved Luna aside and stood up to evade her advances. He turned to me and said, Miss Iris, Luna has had too much to drink. Could you please take her to her room? I saw everything clearly from where I sat. Whether Luna was truly drunk or not, I believe I knew better than he did. Hearing the irritation in Julian's tone, Luna finally came to with deliberate slowness. Julian, you're back. I've missed you so much. She rushed toward Julian and clung tightly to his arm, as if afraid he might slip away. Then, as if noticing me for the first time, she exclaimed with delight, Iris, you're here. She walked straight toward me, not showing any trace of the drunkenness from moments before. He dragged me into the crowd and introduced me to everyone. Seeing those familiar faces sent a chill down my spine. I knew every one of them, and they were all bad news. Honestly, I should have sensed something was off about Julian just from the company he kept. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together, birds of a feather flock together. These trust fund kids are absolute scum. They have no principles in their actions and no moral boundaries in their character. What kind of decent person would Julian be, being such close friends with them? Julian sat in the shadows, only his sharply defined jawline visible, making his expression impossible to discern. I knew Luna's days of bliss were numbered, since Julian preferred proper girls. I forced myself to mingle with those rich kids, even enduring their occasional inappropriate advances. Seeing how well I was getting along with them, Luna lifted her chin and snapped, "You refused to come out before, but look at you now, having the time of your life. Honestly, just dump that deadbeat boyfriend of yours. Any guy here would be an upgrade." She spoke without thinking. Her tactless remark not only embarrassed me publicly but also made the wealthy guys, compared to some deadbeat, look cheap. What's worse, she made it sound like she brought me here to snag some naive rich guy as a boyfriend. The cheerful atmosphere instantly turned dead silent as everyone stared at Luna, startled by the sudden tension. Luna realized her blunder and quickly tried to backtrack. "Hey, if I didn't feel sorry for your complete lack of worldliness and always kept you in mind wherever I go, why would I even bring you here?" Her excuses only dug her deeper. Those trust fund kids were no fools. Yet no one stepped in to save her. They just watched her stumble through increasingly awkward explanations. This was clearly meant to embarrass her. Flustered, Luna grabbed the arm of the man who was obviously involved. "Cole, what do you say?" Cole, the trust fund kid, just smiled without saying a word. Julian rose from the corner and put his arm around Luna's shoulders. "You all enjoy yourselves. This round's on me." When everyone saw Julian stepping in to smooth things over, clearly backing Luna up, they started chatting and laughing again, acting as if that little incident had never happened. I could hear Luna cursing me out in her mind. Damn it, if it weren't for that bitch Iris, I wouldn't have made such a fool of myself. I couldn't care less. Go ahead and curse all you want. You won't have many chances left to curse me anyway, and it's not like I'm losing anything. Luna had invited me to see how effortlessly she navigated Julian's social circle and to envy her lavish, extravagant lifestyle. Little did she expect I'd witness her complete and utter humiliation. After returning, Luna kept a lower profile and stopped telling me how well she was getting along with Julian's friends. Julian treated her just as before, if not better. Luxury jewelry kept arriving at her house daily, making Luna's mother beam with joy. All the neighbors envied her family for landing such an ideal son-in-law. Some even asked Luna to introduce them to wealthy heirs as well. Luna's mother lifted her chin proudly. "What do you all know? My daughter and her fiancé didn't just meet by chance. It was the red thread of fate tied by the matchmaking god, destined to be together. Our Luna is their family's lucky star. Why else would they be so eager to have her?" But I'm still hesitating about whether to let my daughter marry into their family. She was really laying in on thick, but everyone could see how attentive Julian was to her every day, so they naturally played along with flattering remarks. For Julian takes Luna on international trips every other day, each time disappearing for a week. The longest they've been gone is a whole month, and her mother never even batted an eye. Luna complained the hot weather was getting her down, and Julian couldn't stand seeing her upset, so he took her on a getaway to clear her head. Julian is about to make his move. I kept up with my daily work routine, occasionally catching up with Jasper over the phone. Jasper is a good man with a down-to-earth personality and a solid work ethic. He doesn't smoke or drink, though he does love playing video games, but he's very sensible and never spends money on in-game purchases. Life is following its usual routine, and I really enjoy this peaceful existence, but I can't let my guard down just yet. There are still things I need to finish. Until that despicable couple gets what they deserve, this isn't over. I'm secretly gathering information about Julian's parents and have hired a professional investigator to dig up their secrets. The past of these so-called successful people can't withstand close scrutiny. I've gathered all the evidence and I'm just waiting for the right moment to catch them all in one sweep. I'm going to make them pay back every last thing they owe us. When I saw Luna again, she had gotten noticeably tanner and leaner, but her spirits were higher than ever. Carrying bags of all sizes, she walked downstairs wearing sunglasses like a celebrity, ignoring anyone who tried to talk to her as she headed straight home. TSK, that Luna girl is really something. She's destined for a life of wealth and luxury, the elderly folks downstairs exclaimed with admiration. During that period, the matchmaker temple was nearly overrun with visitors, countless men and women all praying for love and marriage. Luna asked to meet at a coffee shop downtown, gushing about how wonderfully Julian had been treating her lately and how incredibly happy she felt. Of course I knew, before revealing his true colors, Julian always put on a convincing act, playing the role of an almost perfect boyfriend flawlessly. But let's be real. How could anyone actually be that perfect? Not just perfect. but tailor-made to match all your preferences. That kind of person just screams red flags from the start. But Luna, head over heels in love, was completely oblivious. Just like I was back in the day, I smiled as Luna told me about the country she and Julian had visited, the breathtaking sights they'd seen, and the interesting people they'd met. How protective Julian was of her, seeing that I showed no sign of envy. She gradually lost interest and slowly fell silent. "You country bumpkin. You'll never even leave the city, let alone go abroad. There's no point telling you. You can't even imagine what other countries are like." It was clear Julian was about to make his next move, since he hadn't asked Luna out for several days. To steer clear of the turmoil and prepare for what came next, I arranged a business trip ahead of schedule and headed south. Fortunately, our organization is quite large with branches across the country. When the project I was overseeing required a business transfer center recently, I volunteered and was assigned to the southern region. Julian's next move was to drive a wedge between Luna and her relatives and friends, isolating her completely. This way, he could take her to a remote island for months without anyone noticing. Eventually, he'd tell them Luna had died overseas from an unexpected illness, then go through the motions of paying out a hefty compensation. That amount would be pocket change to them, just spare cash, yet it's more than what an average family could save in a lifetime. Based on the image he's cultivated in front of her family and friends over the past 6 months, no one would suspect him. People would even admire Julian's generosity. Despite it not being his fault, he still gave his girlfriend's family a substantial amount of money, ultimately earning himself a good reputation. This way, he leaves no evidence behind. Even if he were to kill someone, there would be no stain on his record. In my previous life, my relationship with Luna had essentially fallen apart. No matter what I said to her, she always thought I was showing off, so I eventually stopped keeping in touch with her. That's why Julian didn't include Luna in his plans at this stage. After I escaped from the island, she was the only one I could reach out to. Little did I know I'd end up losing my life because of her. Sure enough, within days Luna started blowing up my phone, calling and texting nonstop. She complained about her mom, vented about her dad, griped about her snobby relatives, and even the neighbor's dog downstairs seemed to have it out for her, using work as an excuse. I'd only reply with "really" once every couple of days at first. Eventually it became one reply per week. No way. Eventually, I stopped replying to her messages altogether. When she called, I'd just say, "Work's crazy, gotta go," and hang up. I never gave her a chance to speak her mind. Gradually, she stopped reaching out to me as well. Just as I expected, Julian's operation to eliminate everyone around Luna conveniently overlooked me. If I had been removed too, things would have gotten much trickier down the line. Then one day, I called my mom and asked how Luna was doing. Her dismissive tone came through the phone. She ran away from home. Took all the valuables with her too. Her mom was so furious she stood outside cursing, saying raising her was worse than raising a dog. When I ran away in my past life, my mom cursed me out the same way, though I wasn't as extreme as Luna. When did she leave? It's been a whole week. Why are you asking about that? I'm warning you, if you dare pull such a stunt, I'll break your legs. Only 1 week. It seems things are progressing much faster in this lifetime than they did for me originally. I dated Julian for 2 years before he started employing tactics to cut me off from my family, and it's only been a year, yet he's already taken Luna to a remote island. I immediately requested to end my business trip, using pregnancy as the reason, stating I needed to return home to prepare for the wedding. I had just gotten home when I received a text from Luna. It had been ages since I last heard from her. 5. Iris, guess where I am? Julian and I are on a private island, and it's all mine. This is the happiest I've ever been, and I know this joy will last. I finally understand the happiness you once had, but now, it's mine. After reading Luna's message, I was overwhelmed with exhilaration. It's finally coming to an end. My revenge is finally coming to an end. Luna, I'll give you whatever you want. Where else in the world could you find a friend as good as me? In my previous life, standing on the island with Julian, I thought I would be reborn here and have a fresh start. Little did I know, the nightmare was just beginning. On this small island, everyone except us was a foreigner speaking languages I'd never even heard before. Every day, I had no choice but to follow Julian around. Then one day, I met the young man who delivered milk to our house daily. He was only 18, radiant with youthfulness. Even without sharing a common language, I could sense his kindness through his gestures and expressions. I want to communicate with others, but ever since we moved here, Julian has been locking himself in the study. He won't let me go out, but he doesn't talk to me either. So every day, during the brief moments I get to interact with the young man, I've been learning a few simple words. I was so thrilled that I ran to share my joy with Julian, but his expression suddenly shifted. Where did you learn that? Who taught you? Confused, I whispered softly. It was just before I could finish, Julian hoisted me over his shoulder, ignoring my struggles, and carried me straight down to a basement in the house. After living here for so many days, I had no idea there was even a basement. A wave of terror washed over me. For a whole year after that, I never set foot outside that place. Julian was a monster. He never laid a hand on me before, saying he wanted to wait until we were married. Now it's clear he had a medical condition that made him incapable of doing it. So he unleashed every twisted method on me. That period was sheer living hell. Every day I prayed for the dawn never to break. His mental state was wildly unpredictable. One moment he'd hold me tenderly dressing my wounds. The next he'd dig his fingers into the injuries and tear them open wider. He's a complete lunatic, an absolute madman. I finally managed to sneak away while his mother was on the phone with him, crawling on my knees step by step to escape the basement. Luckily, he never imagined I'd actually escape one day, and my phone was still right where I left it in the room. The charger was right next to it. I quickly opened my phone, but staring at the half-empty contact list, I felt completely lost. Who should I even call? His family has immense influence. If I call the police, they'd probably move me before the cops even finish verifying the situation. And I don't even remember where I am. How would they ever find me? A year of torment has successfully eroded my memory, making it steadily worse. It suddenly hit me. I had told Luna about this before coming. She'll definitely be able to find me. I squeezed under the desk and shakily dialed Luna's number. Luckily, she picked up right away. Luna, help me. Julian's going to kill me. I'm on that island I told you about before. Come save me. Please, I'm begging you. I can't hold on much longer. Luna was silent for a moment on the other end, then asked, "Are you still on that island now?" "Right. I can't get away right now. I'm still trapped in that villa." "Where exactly? Give me the specific location." That question sent a chill down my spine. Why would she need the exact address? It's not like I could just stay put waiting for her to show up. Just then, a gentle male voice spoke up from behind me. "Iris, what are you doing crouched down here?" My hair stood on end. I turned around to see Julian holding a phone to his ear with one hand and a red whip in the other, looking at me gently. Luna's voice came through the phone he held to his ear. "Julian, Iris just told me she's going home. She wouldn't be doing this alone, would she? Did she meet someone on the island? Someone who talked her into leaving together? That's not what happened. It's not true." I heard Luna's slanderous words and watched Julian's expression shift through several emotions before settling into its usual vicious demeanor. The whip came down without warning, first striking my left eye, then my arm, neck, legs. I lay on the ground, no longer feeling the cold, listening to Luna's insincere pleas from the still connected call while enduring the bone-deep pain. Hatred swelled within me. If there is a next life, I will make them pay. I snapped back to reality. Realizing my thoughts had drifted back to the final year of my previous life, I wonder how long Luna can keep this up. 3 months later, my phone rang with a call from Luna. I picked up the call from my desk, my face expressionless. "Iris, help me, please. Julian's insane. He's going to kill me. You have to help me. It hurts so much." I shifted to a more comfortable position and continued listening. "Oh, really? How is this possible? Isn't Julian the perfect boyfriend? He can give you all the happiness you want. You two will live happily ever after." Luna instantly caught on when she heard me emphasizing the word happiness with unmistakable sarcasm in my tone. She snapped, "Iris, you did this on purpose. You knew all along, didn't you? You bitch. You fucking bitch." I was laughing so heartily that my colleagues nearby were giving me puzzled looks. "Let me guess where you're hiding, under the desk like me." Ha 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 ha. I genuinely couldn't hold back. And it made Luna so furious she could only curse bitch repeatedly. I stopped laughing and said, "Luna, you should thank me. I haven't even called Julian yet." 6. The timing of this call tells me everything. Luna's suffering far exceeds what I endured, and we're just getting started. She's already losing her mind after merely 3 months. Through the receiver, I could hear Julian calling for Luna, accompanied by the relentless thuds of her kowtowing and pleading for mercy. "Luna won't die today, but she'll wish she were dead. My plan is straightforward. I'll drive Luna completely insane, then have her take Julian down with her. People like them don't deserve to walk this earth." Sure enough, 2 weeks had passed without me seeing Julian show up at Luna's doorstep to announce the death, nor had she contacted me again. But then I ran into a familiar face. It was Cole, Julian's trust fund friend who's having an affair with Luna. "Is Luna back yet?" he asked me with a sly look. I was taken aback. I hadn't expected him to initiate a conversation with me. "I haven't been in touch with her for ages." "Really? Julian's playing some seriously twisted games." I stared at Cole in disbelief. He asked me to seduce his girlfriend, but who knew Luna would be so easy? She jumped at the first hint of attention. I feel like my entire worldview is crumbling. Did Julian do this on purpose? I recalled how Julian's friends in my previous life seemed excessively eager too. But I didn't think much of it at the time, I just treated them as my own friends. Only that milk delivery boy on the island was someone I met independently of Julian. Could he be? A chill ran down my spine. Julian is terrifying. Recalling the detective's findings, Julian has dissociative identity disorder along with OCD, manic episodes, and other conditions, practically a full house of psychological issues. Now I understand why he did it. One of his personalities allows him to interact normally with others, maintain moral awareness, and behave within societal boundaries. His other personality unleashed the emotions he had long suppressed, driving him to seek violent revenge. He set me up to be seduced because he believed my infidelity would justify his abuse. He's completely unhinged. Ring-a-ling. The sudden ring of the phone made me jump. But the caller ID on my phone screen was even more alarming. It was a string of digits I knew all too well. Julian's number. What could he possibly be calling me for? After a moment's hesitation, I picked up the call. Julian's voice on the other end was as warm and gentle as the first time we met. Iris, it's Julian. Do you still remember my number? I asked warily. Why wasn't it you who picked up the fortune slip? It was clearly you in our previous life. He's back, but it's all right, since fate has granted us this reunion. It must mean our connection remains unbroken. I'm sorry I accidentally caused your death in our last life. Hearing his casual apology sent chills down my spine. That simple sorry concealed a human life. What does he think human lives are? I made an effort to slow my voice and calm myself down. What are you saying? I can't understand you. No worries if you don't get it. I'll come find you after I'm done with her. Julian's tone was cheerful. I can't reach Luna anymore. Could you let me speak with her? I didn't even ask if Luna was with him, because I knew she must be. Please, I miss her so much. Sure enough, Julian handed the phone directly to Luna without hesitation. I said from my end of the call, Luna, did you hear what Julian just said? He's coming back to me. In the end, he loves me more. The happiness you stole with all your scheming will ultimately be returned to me. Are you really content with this? You're just a stepping stone to my happiness. A mere spectator who'll never have the right to be happy yourself. He's about to break free from you and come to me. We'll get married in a villa worth billions, surrounded by endless luxury jewelry, designer clothes, and handbags. Meanwhile, you'll rot away in some sunless basement, decaying in your own misery. Hearing the ragged breathing and angry growls from the other end of the phone, I knew I was about to succeed. Luna will never bring me happiness. Ha 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 ha. Julian suddenly took the phone and said cheerfully, Iris, wait for me to come find you. What would you like? His words were cut off abruptly, followed by the sound of a phone hitting the floor and a heavy thud. I could already picture it, Luna seizing the moment Julian turned his back to take my call, grabbing the blade within reach without hesitation and plunging it into his chest. Julian never saw it coming. The very weapon meant to send her to her grave ended up being turned on him. It's all finally coming to an end. With Julian dead, Luna doesn't stand a chance of leaving that island alive. It's swarming with his people. The moment she steps out of that villa, she'll be spotted, and the Julian family will immediately know Julian is dead. Do you really think they'd let their son's killer get away with it? Listening to the repetitive sound of a blade plunging into and withdrawing from a chest over the phone, I smiled with satisfaction. Did I say anything? I was just daydreaming about the happy future Julian and I could have together. 3 days later, I reported my friend missing on an island. When the local police went to investigate, they were shocked by what they found on the isolated island, and it made the news that same day. Inside, they discovered the body of a woman covered in countless wounds. There was barely a spot on her that was untouched. 7, however, based on the amount of blood at the scene. It was clear there should have been another body. After a search, they found a male finger in the corner. The lack of physiological reaction at the severed end suggested it had been cut off after death. They also unearthed dozens of skeletal remains buried beneath the villa's backyard, all of which were identified as female victims. The scandal erupted when they released Luna's pre-death photographs. Julian's family didn't even dare to announce their own son's death publicly, despite having his severed finger as evidence, since his body had already been secretly retrieved by them. Frankly, I found their predicament pathetic, too cowardly to hold a proper funeral for their deceased son, so I leaked all the evidence gathered by the detective. Within hours, Julian's company was swarmed by grieving relatives demanding answers. They ultimately ended up behind bars. The wealthiest man in the capital has fallen from grace. Want some ice cream? Jasper isn't particularly wealthy or accomplished. He's a bit immature and has numerous flaws really. His looks are the only decent thing he's got going for him. Yet somehow, I feel completely content. Now this is what a normal relationship looks like. Story 2. The brat insisted on feeding spicy strips to the tiger. When I stepped in to stop him, his parents scolded me for meddling. They even picked up the fallen snack and tried to shove it into my mouth. If tigers can't eat spicy strips, then you eat it to show my son. When the little rascal got his head stuck in the tiger cage, his parents finally panicked, and I'm the tiger keeper. The only key that can save him is in my hand. It's feeding time at the zoo. I carried the heavy food bucket towards the tiger's cage, gripping the meter-long tongs. I carefully placed the pieces of beef into the enclosure, one by one. The tiger immediately pounced on the food, its sharp teeth tearing into the crimson chunks of meat. Seeing it devour its meal with such relish, I picked up the empty bucket and turned to leave. Wham! An unopened pack of Lachio hit me square in the face. A chubby little boy, fair-skinned and round, was excitedly shouting, Mommy, I want to feed the big tiger too. I want to have a Lachio eating contest with the big tiger, see who can eat more and faster, besides feeding. I'm also responsible for maintaining order in this area. Bending down to pick up the spicy stick, I crouched to meet his gaze. Sweetie, the big tiger can only eat the meat prepared by the keeper. You mustn't feed it anything else. If it eats packaged snacks, its tummy will hurt really bad. In serious cases, it might even need surgery. I tried to keep my tone gentle, but it still managed to provoke the woman in the red dress nearby. She snatched the spicy strip from my hand and shot me a fierce glare. Where the hell did you come from? Who gave you the right to discipline my kid? Nothing makes you want to laugh more than being utterly speechless. I politely smiled, about to say I was a tiger keeper. To my surprise, the woman in red completely lost it. What's so funny? You think I'm ridiculous? What's the big deal about feeding them some spicy sticks? Everyone's tossed snacks to animals as kids. Stop acting all high and mighty like some clueless foreigner. She shoved me hard, and I lost my balance, falling backward as a sharp pain shot through my tailbone. Serves you right for meddling. She laughed while tearing open the snack bag. Go ahead, sweetie, feed them as much as you want. Mommy will take pictures. By the time I got up clutching my sore backside, the chubby kid was already tossing spicy strips into the cage. My arms were probably too short, or I wasn't close enough, because most of the spicy strips ended up on the ground. The albino Bengal tiger in the cage has a beautiful name, Snow. Snow is the park's prized possession, brought in by the boss at great expense. I can't afford for even a single hair on her to be out of place. I quickly grabbed the chubby kid's arm and loudly warned him, Madam, please control your child. Feeding the animals is prohibited here. The spicy strip fell to the ground, and the chubby kid's face flushed with rage before he suddenly tried to bite. His teeth left deep marks on my hand. As I jerked it back, the little fatty staggered and nearly fell. The woman in red completely lost it. She lunged at me like a madwoman, her bedazzled acrylic nails clawing wildly at my face. You little bitch, how dare you lay a finger on my son? I'll rip that filthy mouth of yours apart. As I raised my arms to push her away, the chubby kid suddenly grabbed iron pliers from the bucket. Evil woman, don't you dare hurt my mom. I reached for the pliers, but the woman in the red dress seized my ponytail and yanked it downward with all her might. The pain made me arch my back, terrified she might rip my entire scalp off. The woman gloated with vicious delight. Such a clever boy. Come on, raise those pliers higher, aim for her damn head. Suddenly lowering her voice to a sickeningly sweet tone, she cooed, It's fine to kill her, sweetie, children can't be charged with murder. I whipped my head around just in time to see the chubby kid swinging the iron pliers overhead, coming straight for my temple. This mother-son pair is fucking insane. It was summer vacation, and quite a crowd had gathered in front of Snow's cage. Help, somebody help me. I kept dodging while screaming for help. What a shame, everyone's here with their kids. Nobody wants to pick a fight with a lunatic. Let it go. We're all just trying to get by. We're here to have fun. No need to get so worked up. The crowd offered half-hearted words of caution, but no one dared step in. Some even started filming from a safe distance. I'm completely out of ideas now. My knees buckled and I dropped to the ground. I wasn't kneeling to beg for mercy, too. Seizing the opportunity, I twisted the red-dressed woman's wrist and yanked downward with force. Just as expected, she lost her balance instantly and tumbled to the ground with me, screaming all the way down, seizing the chance. I yanked my hair free and scrambled backward like a crab for a good 2 meters. The girl in red struggled awkwardly to her feet while the chubby kid dropped his pliers in terror, bursting into loud sobs. We made such a chaotic scene in front of the cage, shouting, wailing, complete pandemonium. Snow contentedly licked her blood-stained lips while gently swishing her tail. My face burned and my scalp throbbed with pain. What? Am I some punching bag? She just hits me whenever she damn well pleases. I pulled out my phone to call the cops. I hadn't fought back the entire time, just to make sure she'd get arrested. Hello, I've been assaulted at Taodao Zoo. Could you send someone over? I'm not a tourist, I'm a zookeeper. The operator was still asking for details. Suddenly, a tattooed arm roughly snatched the phone and shoved me to the ground. Honey, what took you so long? One more second and they would have beaten me and the baby to death. The woman in red sobbed pitifully. Her voice trembling with delicate distress, the brute helped her up, and the pair advanced toward me with renewed aggression. As I struggled to rise, the thug slammed his weight onto my shoulder, grinding my face mercilessly into the rough concrete. The woman in the red dress lifted her leg, her high heel aimed squarely at my stomach, kicking me hard. "You gonna call the cops on your mama, so tigers can't eat spicy strips, huh? Then you eat them and show my son." I curled up like a shrimp. The pain so intense I couldn't even scream for help. Red dress nudged the plastic bag on the ground with her foot. "Sweetie, you feed him." The chubby kid immediately grabbed a spicy stick, covered in grit and dust, and haphazardly shoved it into my mouth. I frantically shook my head, and the chili oil smeared onto the wound on my cheek. The burning sting made me scream. The chubby kid wasn't done yet. He spat at me with a tui-tui and wiped his grubby hands all over my hair. The family of 3 took one look at my pitiful state and shook with laughter. "Where the hell are the cops? I'm getting murdered here. Is anyone gonna save me?" Just as despair set in, a figure in blue stepped between me and danger. It wasn't the police, just the rookie security guard who started the same day as me. "Back off. Next move gets you hurt. I've called for backup. Cops will be here in 20 minutes. He brandished the riot baton, his voice quivering slightly. The scrawny security guard looked like he couldn't take 3 punches from the burly man. Though the muscular man was unarmed, the guard at least had a baton. Both stood frozen, neither daring to make the first move. "Stop, no fighting, let's talk this out like adults." In the midst of the standoff, the zoo manager came rushing over, his tie askew from the hurry. Both the young security guard and I immediately felt relieved, with another adult joining us. It's now 3 against 2, even the toughest guys would think twice. The manager panted heavily as he stepped between them. "Ezra, to what do we owe this unexpected pleasure?" He pulled out a cigarette and offered it to the burly man with an ingratiating smile. "These 2 are new here, they don't know the ropes yet. A great man like you wouldn't hold a grudge against us little people. Don't stoop to a child's level." The young security guard and I locked eyes in silent mutual understanding, both radiating pure dumbfoundedness. The manager's arrival at least de-escalated the confrontation. Ezra took the cigarette and drew a deep drag. "Nobody messes with my wife and kids and gets away with it. You think I can show my face around town if word gets out? 30 grand for medical bills and emotional damages, not a penny less." I yelled with my neck stiffened in defiance. "I'm broke. Go ahead. Try beating me to death right in front of the cops, actually. I've got over 10 grand sitting in my Alipay account. That includes the scholarship I just got from the department, plus next semester's tuition and housing fees. Getting beaten up and having to pay compensation, not a chance." Ezra's face darkened as he raised his fist to swing at me again. The young security guard sprang into action. His baton came crashing down on the thug's muscular arm. "Stop this, you're taking things too far." The solid hit landed, yet Ezra didn't even flinch. He kicked out, sending the young security guard flying a considerable distance. The manager, trembling with fear, smacked me twice on the head. 3, I'm trying to help you. Why are you so ungrateful and unreasonable?" He then turned to Ezra, forcing a smile. "How about this? I'll transfer her salary to you, and I'll cover the rest out of my own pocket." Ezra flicked his cigarette but into my face. "This little bitch got any connections? Don't come back to bite me in the ass later." Watching me frantically brush the ash off my face, he broke into a wide grin. The manager chuckled. "They're just college kids working summer jobs for internship certificates. They'll do $160 gigs. What kind of connections could they possibly have? This is downright humiliating." I didn't beg for mercy or shed a single tear when they beat me, hearing the manager's words. Both the young security guard and I burst into sobs. College students are human too, they feel pain and heartbreak just like anyone else. Seeing me sob uncontrollably, the manager continued his threats. "I have all your information from the onboarding forms, your ID number, home address, and university details. You'd better think carefully about what to tell the police when they arrive." I hunched my shoulders and nodded repeatedly, pretending to be terrified. "When the cops show up, I'll make sure to spill everything and get that damn couple thrown behind bars. Since I'm not getting paid, I'll just lay low at school after today." How far can they really go? They wouldn't dare storm a university to start throwing punches, would they? I was mentally calculating when Ezra suddenly spoke up. "Go get 2 sheets of paper. I won't rest easy without proper documentation. The police will be here any minute. Hurry up." The manager immediately started bowing obsequiously before scurrying back to his office to fetch the items. The woman in red suddenly grabbed his sleeve. "You tell me, can this damn animal even eat spicy strips?" the manager said. "This much should count itself lucky to be hand-fed by you, ma'am." The woman in red scooped up a handful of snacks and shoved them into the chubby kid's hands. "Good boy, feed it however you want." The chubby kid raised his hand and hurled several snack packs into the cage, hitting Snow directly. Snow shifted its rear lazily, rolled over, and retreated to the farthest corner of the cage. Seeing the tiger didn't react, the little fatty grew bolder. Stupid tiger, no sleeping, eat your food now. He ducked under the barrier and pressed his whole body against the iron cage, even shoving his chubby little hand between the bars. Mom, come here quick! The chubby kid screeched at the top of his lungs. This dumb tiger won't listen. I'm gonna beat it to death. Ezra suddenly grew a bit nervous. You've put up caution tape. Is there actually something dangerous here? The manager waved dismissively. Relax. This tiger's been lethargic all day. Doesn't even have the energy to bite. It was the hottest part of the day, with the sun beating down relentlessly. There was no air conditioning in the enclosure, just an old fan hanging from the ceiling, its blades creaking as they spun, blowing nothing but hot air. Snow opened his mouth wide, his tongue lolling out, as he lay by the stainless steel water bowl, licking incessantly. Seeing how listless the tiger was, Red Dress confidently stepped over. She picked up the feeding tongs and scooped up the chubby little one in one swift motion. Mother and son gripped the long tongs together, banging them against the railings with such force they looked like tiger hunters in action. The cage vibrated with a low hum as Snow pricked up her ears, twitching them rhythmically. The woman in red grew even more smug. My brave little champ, you even took down a tiger. My boy's tougher than Wusong the tiger slayer. Ezra puffed out his chest and boasted. Damn right, like father like son, you should know whose blood runs in these veins. In the blink of an eye, the manager returned with paper and an ink pad. Ezra dragged the little security guard to me like a dead dog. Press your own damn fingerprints, or I'll make you. I won't press my fingerprint. Who knows what they'll write on that paper? Besides a reconciliation agreement, it could be a promissory note, or even a bond of indenture. I clenched my fists tightly, and the young security guard remained silent. The manager sighed, forcefully prying my thumb to press it into the ink pad, mimicking the chubby kid. I aimed for the back of his hand and bit down hard. Ah, let go, the manager shrieked. Glaring at me with a dark, twisted expression, Ezra let out a sarcastic laugh, then backhanded me before turning to viciously kick the young security guard several times. You bitch, don't push your luck. You think I'm out of options just because you won't sign. He leaned in close to my ear, his breath reeking of foul heat. For, still playing tough, I'll strip you both naked in a minute, pose you for some artistic shots. College girl footage sells like hotcakes online. The manager squinted, pointing at the cage. Hurry, there's a storage room right next to it. The cops are coming. He and Ezra were visibly panicking. The manager yanked my hair violently, dragging me backward with brutal force. I kicked helplessly, my scalp burning with pain, but I just couldn't muster any strength. Ezra was even more ruthless. The moment the young guard struggled, he stomped on vulnerable flesh without hesitation. The surrounding tourists had already fled in terror, if locked in that storage room. Even the police wouldn't find me. The worst part, Ezra planned to take nude photos. What awaited me wasn't just blackmail, but something far more vile, something worse than death itself. Damn it, get them inside. No, the woman in the red dress yelled impatiently. A desperate thought flashed through her mind. If all else fails, I'll just ram myself into the door. Suddenly, the little chubby boy let out a heart-wrenching scream. Mommy. My head's stuck. I can't move. The tiger's standing up. It's coming towards me. The woman in red turned at the sound and screamed, help, somebody help, my son's trapped in the tiger cage. While the adults weren't looking, the chubby kid stuck his head through the railing and got himself hopelessly stuck. His face turned beet red as he wheezed and sobbed, gasping for air between cries. The woman in the red dress panicked, yanking her son's arm desperately to free him. Piercing wails and shrieks rose in a chaotic chorus. Roar, roar. Snow paced restlessly, letting out deep, agitated growls. Ezra lunged forward and slapped his wife across the face without hesitation. Stop your nonsense. Are you trying to get our son killed? Damn it, everyone, quiet down, no crying. The woman in the red dress had a swollen face from the slaps. She bit her lip and clamped her hand over her son's mouth, not daring to let go. A horizontal bar was fixed across the middle of the vertical railings. The chubby little boy, held in her arms, was perfectly wedged in the upper section, just a bit lower, and that slender neck would get caught by the crossbar, practically a hanging noose. These alloy cages can only be cut through with hydraulic shears, though there's still a small door on the front of the iron cage. A hefty padlock hangs on the door. Ezra glanced down and grabbed the manager by the collar. Where's the damn key? Open this lock right now. The manager turned pale and shook his head in terror. We can't open this side door. I'm calling the fire department. Ezra knocked him to the ground. What are we waiting for? The fire department to collect your corpse. If my son loses so much as a single hair, you'll pay for it. There were still quite a few visitors in the zoo. The manager realized Ezra wanted to unleash the tiger on others to keep his own son safe. But if that cage opened and the tiger hurt anyone, the manager would face lawsuits and jail time. Snow had never bitten anyone, no matter how you looked at it. Opening that cage was far riskier. The manager pointed at me and roared, "The keys, she's got the keys." Ezra glared at me viciously while the manager scrambled to his feet and fled. "The keys are actually with me, I can't give them to him." The chubby kid's sobs grew fainter as Ezra advanced toward me step by step. "Hand over the key, or I'll end you." "Run, I'll hold him off." The young security guard lunged forward and locked his arms around Ezra's calf. Ezra pummeled him like a madman. When kicks to the gut failed, he aimed for the face. Blood gushed from the young guard's nose as he gasped, "Run, I can't hold him much longer." He was desperately grappling with Ezra, but I could barely even stand. As Ezra nearly broke free, I clenched my teeth and crawled toward the tiger cage, dragging my injured leg. "Are you out of your mind? What the hell are you doing?" the young security guard wailed in despair. "5, can't you see I'm buying time with my life here? I'm getting beaten to death." You. Suddenly it dawned on him, and he started cheering me on. "Move those dead legs. The hell's wrong with you? Skipped breakfast or what? This all you got? College boy, bet you've never passed a fitness test. Don't make me lose respect for you, damn." He's even resorting to reverse psychology now. Ezra scoffed. "Would have been easier if you just obeyed from the start." I ignored him, scrambling forward faster, because I knew his laughter wouldn't last. My knees and elbows were scraped raw against the rough concrete, but I couldn't afford to cry out. Finally reached the front of the cage. The woman in red was drenched in sweat, her damp hair clinging to her face. The chubby boy's lips turned pale, his face smeared with tears and snot, too exhausted to even cry. Snow crouched quietly before the mother and child. As I pulled the keys from my inner pocket, the woman in red instantly locked her gaze onto them. Her eyes flashed with manic glee, yet she snarled through gritted teeth, "No tricks, open that door right now." My fingers clenched around the keys as I raised my trembling arm high. The woman in red finally understood my intention. She sobbed quietly, choking back her tears. "Please, open the door and save my son. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have fed him those spicy snacks, let alone hit anyone. My son's still so young, he doesn't understand anything." She began slapping her own face with frightening intensity, her cheeks swelling to a shiny glow. I said, "You're not sorry for what you did. You're just scared your son's dying." I hurled the keys violently into the tiger's cage. The metal key clinked sharply as it hit the floor. Snow tilted her head and casually plopped down right on top of the key. "Damn it. Any slower and I'd be dead for real." The young guard collapsed onto the floor, arms limp and gasping for air. Ezra's completely lost it. He lunged at the cage, yanking my hair and slamming my head against the bars repeatedly. "You fucking bitch. I'll fucking end you today, you motherfucker. If my son dies, I'll slaughter every last one of your family." Blood trickled down my forehead, blurring my vision. Roar. Snow grew restless from the scent of blood, its massive paws relentlessly pounding against the iron cage. The cage wouldn't budge, leaving me and the young guard as easy prey. Ezra didn't flinch at Snow's rage, yanking my arm straight toward the beast's jaws. At the critical moment, my fingers found the fallen pliers beneath the railing. Screw this fighting back means mutual combat bullshit. Not even God himself could deny this was self-defense today. Gripping the pliers tightly, I aimed the jaws at Ezra's crotch and squeezed with all my might. Ezra let out a gut-wrenching scream and finally let go. He curled up on the ground, writhing in pain, clutching his groin as blood slowly began to seep through his pants. I grabbed the pliers and jabbed wildly at his vulnerable spots again. "You bitch, don't you dare hit my husband," the woman in the red dress screamed hoarsely, but had to drag the chubby kid along, no matter how furious she was. She could only watch helplessly. Snow crouched low, her tiger tail raised high, adopting an offensive stance. Seizing the moment while Ezra was groaning on the ground, I used the iron pliers as a makeshift crutch and finally managed to stand up. My mind started racing. Rows of iron cages surrounded me. Where could I possibly hide now? Wait, there's one spot that's open air. I hopped away toward Monkey Hill in panic. 6, run. That bastard's trying to feed us to the tigers. A glance back showed the young guard dragging his injured leg toward the warehouse. I let out a shrill scream of desperation. "Are you out of your mind? You don't even have the warehouse key. This is suicide." We were dancing on the edge of death, barely surviving those excruciating minutes. "Just hold on a little longer. We'll be completely safe once the police arrive." I can't for the life of me understand why he's crawling over there. But Ezra was already on his feet. He immediately headed for the closer security guard, his tattooed arms, thick as tree trunks, locked around the guard's slender waist. Just as he was about to exert force, some invisible power halted his movement. The young security guard actually handcuffed himself to the warehouse's circular door bolt. There was no time to ponder the legality of a security guard having handcuffs anyway. A college student's mind just works fast. I was about to applaud and cheer for him. But Ezra didn't hesitate for a second and came back towards me. By then, I was already standing at the edge of Monkey Mountain. Looking down, I realized the circular wall of Monkey Mountain was at least 5 meters high. That's like jumping off a second-story balcony. You'd be lucky to survive, let alone walk away without serious injuries. Ezra's face was ashen, like a corpse, as he grimaced, clutched his backside, and lunged forward. Steeling myself, I closed my eyes and took the leap. Splash. Instead of hitting the hard ground, I plunged into water. To prevent the monkeys from escaping, they had dug a motor on Monkey Mountain. A few small monkeys were playing in a boat on the water when they saw me fall from the sky. They shrieked in terror and scattered. Ezra clung to the wall, screaming in utter despair. God damn it, fuck you, fucking, you bitch, get your ass up here if you dare. Ha ha ha, asterisk kick asterisk. I choked on filthy water between fits of laughter, flailing wildly before scrambling ashore and hauling myself up Monkey Hill with my claws. Snatching a banana, I peeled it while taunting upwards. Come down if you dare, jump already, chicken, you call yourself Ezra, more like Limp Dick, I'm the one and only tigress around here. Ezra was so furious that veins bulged on his forehead as he threw shadow punches in the air. I knew he wouldn't dare to jump. The Monkey Mountain's too high, easy to jump down, but dragging a full-grown adult back up would be nearly impossible. Honey, hurry, the tiger's going to eat someone. Ezra shot me a furious glare before turning tail and fleeing with visible reluctance. Snow was frantically tearing at the mother and child's clothes through the bars, her sharp fangs clanging against the cage with metallic thuds. Ezra yelled out, "Run for your life, darling. Hand me our boy, I'll carry him." The woman in the red dress wept uncontrollably, her hands trembling as she handed their chubby baby to her husband. Just as she turned to flee, Ezra suddenly kicked her square in the back, sending her sprawling face first onto the ground. Ezra bent down and hoisted the child onto his shoulder. With both hands now free, he decisively grabbed his wife's ankles, deaf to the red-dressed woman's screams and struggles. He ruthlessly dragged her by the leg toward the cage with murderous determination. Snow's jaws gaped at nearly a right angle when the offered thigh came within reach. Ezra had clearly underestimated the tiger's ferocity. There was no time to react. With a sickening crunch, Snow's fangs simultaneously pierced through Ezra's arm and the red-dressed woman's thigh. Piercing screams echoed through the compound. Snow effortlessly severed their limbs with her teeth. Blood sprayed violently, drenching the chubby boy's face and head. The chubby boy let out a faint gurgle before his eyes rolled back, completely passing out. Snow shook off the severed limb from its mouth, golden feline eyes fixed on the boy's bloodied head. Suddenly it extended its barbed tongue, licking the boy's cheek with rough strokes. The girl in red stared in disbelief at her severed leg. Adrenaline sharpened her awareness to crystal clarity, but blood loss quickly sent her back into unconsciousness. On the other side, Ezra desperately yanked with his remaining hand upon seeing the tiger licking his son's head. 7. Brute force works wonders. Finally, he managed to pull the chubby boy's stuck head free. The little head lolled limply on his shoulder, swaying weakly with Ezra's movements. "Ah, my son." Ezra clutched the chubby little boy, letting out a heart-wrenching wail. The police and paramedics arrived simultaneously. The Ezra family of 3 was quickly loaded onto stretchers. The officer gripped his pistol tightly, scanning the surroundings with vigilance. "Where's the tiger? Where did that escaped tiger go?" Fearing they might execute Snow on the spot, I frantically waved and shouted, "Hold your fire, the tiger's still caged." Seeing Snow behaving calmly inside, the officers quickly called for medics to carry both me and the young security guard away. Still uneasy, I flailed on the stretcher while pleading Snow's case. "Officer, the tiger's completely innocent." That lunatic of a man beat people senseless one moment, then shoved his wife's thigh straight into the tiger's jaws the next. The tiger was kind enough to give his son a face wash, and how does he repay it? By snapping the poor kid's neck clean in half. The young security guard and I spent over half a month hospitalized. Besides concussions, Ezra kicked our ribs clean through. Not an inch of our bodies escaped soft tissue damage. The security guard had it worse than me. His nose was nearly broken, and the police even had to take his statement at the hospital. The zoo owner was so terrified he covered all our medical bills and even arranged a VIP ward, just to keep us from causing trouble. My parents rushed to the hospital to take care of me, swearing they'd never let me take such dangerous part-time jobs again. During my recovery, I kept close tabs on updates about Ezra's family and Snow. The chubby kid is incredibly lucky. He survived even with a broken neck. Unfortunately, his brain was deprived of oxygen for too long, leaving him in a vegetative state. To raise money for medical expenses, Ezra's family, even before he was discharged, started live streaming, exploiting the tiger attack incident to garner sympathy. He declared on the live stream that he would make the zoo and me, the heartless culprit, pay for what happened. The small town had never seen such shocking news before. Overnight, Relatives and friends were sharing the fundraising link for Ezra's family across social media: a husband with severed hands, a crippled wife, and a vegetative son, not a single able-bodied person left in the household. Ezra posted stacks of medical reports and bills, setting the fundraising goal at a staggering 2 million yuan. My parents and I were so furious we couldn't even eat. Normally, Ezra would have faced at least administrative detention for picking fights and assault. But they all ended up in the hospital instead. The police can't make arrests until the suspects meet discharge criteria. Ezra got stuck in a glitch and seized the chance to stir up public opinion, even trying to pin the blame on me. The more I think about it, the more nervous I get. Are the zoo's surveillance cameras on? Could they really frame me for this? What was just a minor accident in a small town got blown into a major scandal by Ezra. Ezra's livestream got banned just days after launching. The local police released an overnight statement with surveillance footage showing the whole incident was entirely their family's own doing. Apparently worried about poachers targeting the tiger, the owner actually installed HD cameras in Snow's enclosure. Everything that happened that day was captured in crystal clear detail. Ezra went to great lengths to stir up publicity, only to end up exposing his own dirty laundry online. Netizens just love stirring the pot. Digging into the background of this tough guy who dared to mess with a tiger, turns out Ezra was actually a real piece of work in the underworld. He used to shake people down for protection money while his kid bullied others at school. The whole family made a habit of throwing their weight around. Now with injuries and disabilities piling up, all those old enemies they bullied are just waiting to settle scores. Panicked, Ezra actually broke down in tears and begged the cops to lock him up immediately. The junior security guard and I completed the injury assessment procedure, now awaiting justice through due process. The case went to trial a month later. Ezra glared at me with venomous hatred, as if I'd murdered his father. He raised his mangled arm and roared in court, "Your Honor, this woman clearly committed premeditated murder. She deserves the death penalty, immediate execution." I straightened my back and declared with unwavering conviction, my actions were legitimate self-defense. Safeguarding the keys means protecting people's lives and property. 8. Ultimately, Ezra and his spouse were each sentenced to 3 years and 6 months in prison respectively for assaulting and humiliating others in public, resulting in minor injuries to 2 victims. Additionally, they were ordered to compensate me with 100,000 yuan and the security guard with 150,000 yuan. Ezra, dissatisfied with the verdict, loudly protested and vowed to appeal. While he was a tough character, the zoo owner was even tougher to deal with, and the lawsuit just kept getting more complicated. The actual legal entity behind the zoo was a 90-something-year-old man, and surprisingly, the sole shareholder was the manager. From a legal standpoint, the owner had no equity in the zoo whatsoever. He claimed he was merely a philanthropist who donated animals without charge. The judge wasn't naive. Snow had been illegally smuggled in. The manager and boss received heavier prison sentences than Ezra. The feud was set in stone. The boss vowed to have him killed, and Ezra wouldn't dare return home after his release. The animals long confined in cages were relocated to proper facilities. Before the semester started, I made a special trip to the provincial capital to visit Snow. Snow is an exotic tiger who became the star attraction at the city zoo thanks to its exceptional young genes. It now resides in the spacious white tiger enclosure, complete with lush vegetation, towering trees, and a crystal-clear pool. Instead of iron bars, visitors admire the majestic predator through panoramic glass viewing panels. With an abundant supply of fresh meat, Snow even gets live chickens as treats. When I arrived, it had just finished eating and was lazily rolling on the grass, belly up. I pressed excitedly against the glass and called out, "Snow, I came to see you. Oh, it's just so wonderful that we're both safe and alive." Tigers are remarkably intelligent creatures. That day when my arm got pulled into the cage, it didn't even bite me. Snow learned to swim at her new home, no longer having to lick water from a bowl all day. She dove headfirst into the water, paddled leisurely toward me, then climbed onto the shore nearest the glass. Snow shook off the water with a stylish splash. I clapped my hands excitedly in quiet delight, as if on purpose. It suddenly lifted its hind leg and peed all over the glass. How outrageously shameless and uncivilized. Parents quickly covered their children's eyes as the staff awkwardly explained that Snow was entering mating season and might get a bit frisky. As the zoo was closing, I lingered reluctantly, turning back every few steps. The security guard, thinking I was particularly fond of the white tiger, reassured me. "Come back during winter break, you might get to see Snow's cubs." Story 2. The end was near, and I had no shelter, wandering the streets alone. In my previous life, I was evicted by my landlord due to a breach of contract. Coincidentally, the apocalypse struck, and I was killed by a zombie while searching for a new place to live. When I woke up, I found myself returned to the very noon of the apocalypse. This time, with a group of people, I was rebuilding the world on a small island, where we had ample food and clothing. Welcome. I woke from a nap to find myself dozing off in a convenience store, sitting next to my suitcase, which held all my belongings. The weather outside was clear and calm. Memories of my past life flooded my mind. Miss, I'm sorry, but as I mentioned before, we need to move back into this apartment. Please vacate it now. The landlords had come to my place early in the morning to change the locks, implying that I had no choice but to leave. But it's not the agreed time yet. And I haven't finished packing my things, I said, frowning. This is a special circumstance, and we apologize. Here is your deposit and compensation. Feel free to leave your large furniture here until you find a new place, then you can have someone move it, the landlady said apologetically, being thoroughly polite. I sighed. When you're under someone's roof, you have to bow your head, although I hadn't been living there long. The landlords had been decent to me. Perhaps they really were in a special situation. I took the compensation, almost 10,000 yuan in cash, which felt surprisingly heavy in my hand. Since I had moved into this apartment with just my suitcase and hadn't been living there long, I hadn't acquired many belongings. I packed up my personal items and left the apartment, although I contacted a real estate agent immediately. After viewing several apartments with him, none were satisfactory. I decided to eat lunch and rest at the convenience store. Suddenly, I was brought back to the present moment. I had indeed been reborn at this time. If I remembered correctly, in my previous life, I was killed by zombies around sunset. If I didn't want to end up unprotected and surrounded by zombies on the street like before, finding a place to stay was urgent. After some thought, as a recent graduate with no house, no car, and no money, it was hard to survive alone in a big city. Even if I found an apartment immediately, after paying the rent and deposit, I wouldn't have enough money to reinforce the doors and windows, install security cameras, or stockpile supplies. Being alone made me an easy target for predators, and I had to be wary of landlords, neighbors, and even real estate agents. So, I immediately searched for cruise travel on my phone and luckily found a 60-day cruise departing at 5 p.m. today from our city's port. The cheapest cabin cost 80,000 yuan. A long cruise meant ample supplies on board, and any ship that set sail before the outbreak would be a safe haven. I had to find a way onto that ship no matter what. With only 80,000 yuan, the money I had was far from enough. I tried applying for loans through a bank's lending app, but since I had no prior applications, they required a review, and the fastest they could disburse the funds was the next day. Left with no other choice, I called to book the cruise. Hello. Can I still book a ticket for the Oriental Pearl cruise? I asked. Hello, which departure date for the Oriental Pearl are you inquiring about? A sweet, gentle voice responded. The one departing today at 5 in the afternoon. I'm sorry, madam. Tickets for this cruise were available for booking a year in advance and are already sold out. Would you like to check other departure dates? No, thank you. I hung up the phone and once again fell into despair. I closed my eyes and massaged my temples with my fingers, trying to relax. I needed to think of another solution. A sudden message on my phone caught my eye. There it was in my social media feed, a post that read, "Recruitment for crew members on the Eastern Pearl cruise." It listed a bunch of requirements and specific benefits. After a quick glance, I realized I met the basic criteria and immediately contacted the friend who posted it. He was a college classmate and we had worked together in the same club. We had a good relationship back in university. Alexander, I saw your post about job openings on the Eastern Pearl. I'd like to apply. I got straight to the point. Alyssa, are you sure? Do you have any experience working on a ship? Alexander quickly responded, yes, I am fluent in English, Mandarin, and Cantonese. Skilled in making Chinese pastries and Western-style pastries, can play piano accompaniments, and am capable of various tasks like waiting tables, childcare, and cashiering. I'm up for anything that allows me to work on the Eastern Pearl today. I pitched myself eagerly. Alexander was initially puzzled since my major in university had nothing to do with hospitality, and he took a moment before replying. I spoke to the manager, and he agreed to bring you aboard, but as you lack experience, you'll be paid an intern's wage. Absolutely, I can start immediately, I replied eagerly. Okay, come to Esport, we need to prepare for receiving guests. Actually, our staff was trained a few days ago, but I vouch for you and will guide you, he said. I felt lucky to have such a dependable friend. Our friendship hadn't faded over time. As I looked out the window at the ordinary streets, I made a resolve. I must ensure more people survive, before departure. I had prepared for the worst-case scenario, thinking that if we were stranded, we must survive until rescue arrived. I wasn't sure what would be available on such a luxury cruise, but I knew security would be tight. Relying on my common sense, I bought items like a compass, solar panels, a water filter, flint, seeds, and some useful tools recommended by the store clerk. It didn't matter whether they would be needed. It was best to be prepared, having spent the 10,000 yuan in cash given by my landlord. I packed my suitcase and took a taxi to S-Port. Upon arrival, Alexander met me at a work passage and led me to the cruise ship, which stunned me with its opulence. The massive ship was docked, its deck as large as a plaza, with orderly portholes and a bustling crowd, resembling a skyscraper lying horizontally. Go through the security check here, and once on board, just follow me. Alexander helped me with my luggage and exchanged greetings with other crew members. I boarded smoothly and settled my luggage with Alexander in the crew quarters. The room was small but had bunk beds, a table, 2 chairs, basic furniture, and a small private bathroom, luxurious compared to college dorms. You got a single room, the other bed is unoccupied. Pretty good, right? Alexander patted my shoulder. I've got to go now. Settle in, change into your uniform, and meet me at the staff lounge on the 3rd floor at 4. I nodded, watching him leave, and glanced at my phone. It was just past 3 in the afternoon, and the end of the world was only about 2 hours away. Looking around, the room was small and windowless, but it was a safe shelter from the elements. I quickly organized my things, changed, and headed to the staff lounge ahead of time. Alexander briefed me on some important points and assigned me tasks, since I was still an intern. I was assigned some straightforward responsibilities, starting with replenishing food and drinks at tonight's dinner, followed by cleaning up after the event. At precisely 5:00 p.m., the Eastern Pearl set sail towards the open sea. As I gazed through the banquet hall's floor-to-ceiling windows at the shrinking landscape, a mix of confusion and apprehension filled my heart. Could we really escape the calamity on this ship, or might we encounter even worse events? As dinner time approached, guests started to arrive in small groups, all in high spirits and clearly enjoying their vacation, their conversations filled with laughter. However, around 5:30 p.m., people began checking their phones and discussing the news they received. While working, I couldn't use my phone, but I overheard snippets of conversations from guests. "Oh my, what's happening? Monsters suddenly appearing in the city center," exclaimed a lady as she watched a video on her phone. "Look, someone is live streaming it. How terrifying," another lady responded. "Isn't that zombies?" a young couple concluded. As more passengers on the ship saw the news, a wave of anxiety and fear began to permeate the banquet hall. It wasn't until the captain took control that the atmosphere began to calm. The captain, a distinguished Chinese gentleman in his 50s with graying hair, exuded a calm authority. He stepped onto the stage, originally set up for the welcome party, cleared his throat and announced, "Dear passengers, we have just received news that a zombie virus outbreak has occurred at our point of departure, and authorities are advising residents to seek safety immediately. We will conduct a thorough check of all passengers on board to ensure everyone's safety. Please rest assured." He then repeated the message in English. "We need to turn back, we have to go back," an angry passenger shouted. "My parents are still in S-City. Do you want to go back to die? If you want to die, don't drag us down with you." Other angry voices drowned him out. "The virus is in our departure city, but not in G country we are passing by." "Right, let's seek refuge in another country," someone suggested calmly. "The ship is currently on its regular course, ensuring everyone's safety. We have enough supplies to meet the needs of all on board for 30 days, and we will dock at a safe location for resupply afterward. Please adhere to our arrangements," the captain reassured everyone. With the captain's assurances, the passengers temporarily calmed down. I busied myself finishing my duties and helped in screening the passengers, thankfully finding everyone to be normal. At around 2:00 a.m., when I finished my shift and returned to my small room, I finally had time to check my phone for news. #S-City outbreak of a new virus, spreading rapidly. Hashtag new virus cases appearing in cities B, K, G, W, and others. Hashtag state media advises, all residents avoid going out. Hashtag cause of new virus currently unknown. Hashtag no one knew why the virus could spread so rapidly across different regions in just a few hours. Many infected had turned into zombies, attacking the unsuspecting civilians, with those bitten quickly mutating into unconscious new virus carriers. I hadn't anticipated that the outbreak was just the first sign of the apocalypse, with subsequent extreme weather and various natural disasters nearly destroying the world. The next day, I went to the kitchen at 6:30 8:30 a.m. to help prepare breakfast and set up the dining area. Despite the strangely subdued atmosphere on the ship, it remained largely unaffected by the outside world. After a night of sailing, we were even further from land, surrounded by nothing but the sea. I asked around among the other staff members. Possibly due to the off-peak travel season, the ship carried fewer people than usual, with over 900 passengers and 600 crew members, roughly the population of a small neighborhood. I shuddered at the thought of so many people possibly facing a test of humanity in an apocalyptic scenario, but now, on the same boat, we were all tied to the same fate. A broken nest does not spare any eggs, as the saying goes, and I believed everyone understood this principle. On the third day of the apocalypse, the trending news updated. #new virus has spread to 120 countries worldwide. Hashtag frequent extreme weather events. Glaciers melting rapidly. Hashtag a 9.0 magnitude earthquake has struck off the east coast of Japan. On the seventh day of the apocalypse, the Eastern Pearl also faced a crisis. Within minutes, dark clouds almost completely obscured the sunlight. The fog at sea grew denser by the minute. Alexander, an experienced maritime worker, looked at the scene and said, "This is bad. A severe storm might be on its way," he wondered to himself. I always track the weather forecast closely before setting sail to avoid any storms. I realized something was wrong. We must evacuate the passengers from the deck immediately. Alexander nodded and quickly reported to his superiors. The captain issued orders swiftly. Alexander's prediction was accurate. As I was evacuating tourists who were still enjoying themselves on the deck, dense raindrops pelted me, and the sky, filled with dark clouds, brought a violent storm. Frequent lightning tore through the thick fog, which was still dense beyond. Even the Oriental Pearl, a ship of considerable tonnage, began to sway under the deluge. To safeguard against extreme weather, all passengers please return to indoor areas. The loudspeakers blared repeatedly. Passengers on the deck were quickly moved indoors. A young girl stood under a large parasol, confused and crying hoarsely. I rushed over to pick her up, feeling raindrops sting like needles on my skin. As a huge shadow loomed ominously at the edge of the sea, holding the little girl, I returned to the deck cabin and stopped a pair of parents rushing to the deck, confirming they were the girl's parents before handing her over to them. "Tsunami," a passenger behind me whispered in terror. I turned to see the sea near us rise like a giant, like rolling mountains, seemingly retreating and then quickly surging towards our ship, facing a tsunami. There was a risk of the ship capsizing. Wave after wave, earthquake-like tremors pushed towards our vessel, with the storm and tsunami exerting their force simultaneously, causing massive noise and uncontrollable shaking that terrified everyone on board. After what felt like an eternity, the tsunami gradually subsided. Thanks to being in the deep sea area, our ship did not capsize, but all items on the deck were either swept away or destroyed, leaving only some fish stunned by the waves. The bad news was that due to the damage and changes in the Earth's magnetic field, the ship's communication equipment, navigational instruments, and monitoring systems all failed. Our ship had truly become an isolated island in the ocean, drifting aimlessly. The captain, "The ship's equipment may be damaged, and its power is significantly reduced," a crew member reported to the captain. On the 14th day of the apocalypse, it had been raining for 7 days and nights. An anomaly not typical for this region but a global catastrophe. The last few trending news items I saw were Yangtze and Yellow Rivers break through levees, multiple cities submerged. Hashtag rainfall in the Sahara Desert over 7 days exceeds all previous records. Hashtag coastline receding, residents urgently evacuate. Hashtag flood survival guide. Hashtag unusually high temperatures at the North and South Poles. This meant that the rainfall in the Sahara Desert over the past 7 days had surpassed the total recorded rainfall ever for the area, a terrifying amount of precipitation. The interconnectedness of rivers and seas brought immeasurable loss of property and life to coastal residents. That day, we lost all signals, including mobile phone signals, cutting us off from the outside world. Later, the Oriental Pearl faced another tsunami nearly as strong as the first, causing even more severe damage to the ship. "Captain, we must reach shore before the next tsunami hits. Our ship won't last much longer," the first officer and others urged anxiously. The captain was not oblivious to the situation nor indifferent. It was just that all the ship's modern equipment was damaged, making it impossible to determine position or direction. We were merely relying on the weakened propulsion system. "If land is visible, head for it immediately to seek help," the captain ordered tersely. On the 23rd day of the apocalypse, the crew finally spotted land. The captain decided to steer towards this unknown territory, but it was too late. As we approached the small island, the ship struck a reef during its passage, and this luxurious behemoth could not avoid a capsizing fate. Water flooded into the hull, accelerating the tilt. To save lives, the safety officers immediately deployed lifeboats. Passengers scrambled chaotically, Some were pushed into the boats while others were shoved out, falling into the deep sea. At that moment, there was no distinction between passengers and crew members. Everyone knew that staying on the ship meant certain death, while getting on a lifeboat offered a slim chance of survival. There was no time to think. I rushed back to my room to grab my survival kit bag, stuffing it with some compressed biscuits and a few bottles of drinking water, and then hurried to the deck, all the way. I searched for Alexander with my eyes, but the chaos on the ship made it impossible to find him. "Where have you been? I've been looking everywhere for you." Alexander suddenly appeared, grabbing my arm. "Come with me," he said with the same excitement in his voice as the day he first took me to the dormitory. "You take this lifeboat." Before I could react, he pushed me onto a small lifeboat and released its securing ropes. There were already 6 people on board, an elderly couple, a trembling foreign girl, the ship's cleaner Beatrice, and the mother and daughter I had seen on the day of the storm. "Alexander, come down quick," I shouted desperately at him. "This boat has a capacity of 6 people. It's fine for a small child, but it's full now. I'll find another one," Alexander replied casually, not stopping his actions. "No, give me your hand quickly." I reached up to him, but he was moving farther away. "I took you out to sea. It's my job to get you back safely." Alexander smiled, then finally released the lifeboat completely, and it touched the water. "There are life jackets on board, you know, to get everyone to wear them," he shouted louder as we drifted apart. "Alyssa, survive." Those were the last words I heard him say to me. The storm didn't stop, and people continued to jump into the sea. The large raindrops beat down on us, and I couldn't help but burst into tears. What can I do? Even if I am reborn, I can't save everyone. I can't make everyone on the ship survive. I still depend on the sacrifice of others to be the one who is saved. In the storm, Alexander's words, "Alyssa, survive," gave me strength, as did the smiling wave he gave me when he first saw me at the port. This strength sprouted from the depths of my heart, helping me to live on and meet many kind and beautiful people. I was reborn once again. I wiped my face, where tears mixed with rain, and looked around at the silent people in the boat. "Everyone, put on your life jackets first." I pointed out the location of the life jackets, secured around the edge of the lifeboat, and demonstrated how to wear them correctly. The night engulfed the entire sea, and our only prayer was that the lifeboat could reach the land we had previously hoped for as quickly as possible. Being exposed to the rain without shelter made it easy to catch a cold or fever, which could lead to severe pneumonia in our resource-scarce situation, undoubtedly a death sentence. Fortunately, as dawn broke, I was surprised to find that we were very close to land. I asked everyone to muster their spirits and follow my command to paddle towards the land. Although our boat was filled with the elderly, children, and women, we were surprisingly united and managed to bring the boat to shore. It seemed like an uninhabited island, with a few rugged peaks and unexpectedly a grassland with some common tropical and subtropical trees. Though the status of animals was unknown, and there were no signs of human habitation, I was puzzled. Why would grasslands and tropical-subtropical plants appear together on this small island? "I grew up in the countryside and have experience in outdoor survival. Everyone must have confidence," I said with renewed courage, not forgetting the goal I had set for myself. "We need to find a flat area that can shelter us from wind and rain. A cave would be ideal, otherwise we are at risk of falling ill," I explained as I helped 2 elderly people off the boat. "Given the circumstances, it would be best for us to stick together rather than splitting up to search." The foreign girl had recovered a bit and could speak English, so I communicated with her in English. "Lisa, you mentioned you have hiking experience, so lead the way and keep an eye out for any caves or similar shelters." I stayed in the back, picking up shells and placing them along our path as markers. Although the 2 elderly people were frail, they still supported each other and did their best to walk. Beatrice noticed some berries along the path which she deemed edible, so she gathered them to share with everyone, giving us a little boost of energy. Fortunately, we found a cave not far from the coast. It was quite spacious inside, comfortably accommodating all 7 of us. We rested on the spot, and I opened my backpack to check our supplies. We had 10 compressed biscuits, 5 bottles of mineral water, and survival items like a compass, solar panel, water filter, flint, and seeds that I had bought before boarding. Everyone shared what they had managed to bring in the rush, along with a few supplies from the lifeboat. With 7 of us, even if we rationed, our supplies wouldn't last more than 7 days. After that, we would run out of food and water. On this deserted island, we had to find a way to be self-sufficient to survive. After a day of drifting and being soaked to the bone, we all started feeling a bit chilly. Logic dictated that we needed to start a fire immediately to dry our clothes and warm up. Despite the continuous rain making the islands wood damp, there were still some dry parts that could be used, and I had brought some fire-starting tools, so we could still manage to start a fire. I turned to the foreign girl for her opinion. "Lisa, we need to start a fire quickly. Could you help me find some dry branches?" She nodded in agreement. "Moreover, We couldn't start a fire inside the cave as incomplete combustion would create a lot of smoke and toxic gases, which would be very dangerous. But the damp outside environment and ongoing raindrops could easily extinguish a fire. I told the others, Lisa and I will look for materials to start a fire. Grandpa, Grandma, Beatrice, could you try to build a rain shelter outside our cave? We need to light the fire near the entrance. They all agreed to my plan without any objections. Mrs. and, exhausted, put Brianna to sleep, stating she could clear some stones and other obstacles inside the cave to expand our living space. Everyone was doing their best to contribute. Lisa and I, armed with a multi-tool knife and a shovel, walked cautiously into the rain to avoid any dangers caused by blurred vision. Not far off, we saw some large-leafed plants with thick roots and huge leaves, perfect for making umbrellas or for use as material for the rain shelter. Lisa and I quickly cut down 5 large leaves, using them as makeshift umbrellas as we returned to the cave. We gave 3 to Beatrice and the others, then showed them where to find these large-leafed plants. Be sure to stay safe, I cautioned them. As Lisa and I went further to look for fire-making materials, we snapped small branches to check if they were dry inside, gathering those that were usable, and also collected some dry, thick branches to use their dry insides as tinder. By the time we had gathered enough and returned to the cave, Beatrice and the others had already erected a basic structure for the rain shelter using rocks and various lengths of branches, with the lush green leaves covering the top, to isolate the dampness from the ground. They also laid some stones and wood pieces. Everyone was really pulling their weight. The side of the cave where the entrance was located was already sheltered from the wind, and the rain shelter they built was a great help. I put down the branches and immediately attempted to start a fire, first drilling a hole in a dry large branch. Before inserting the previously purchased cotton padding, I shaved the dry parts of the branches into wood shavings, then sparked a flame using flint, continually adjusting the amount of shavings as needed. As the first wisp of smoke gave way to a flickering flame that gradually grew stronger, my anxiety was halved. Having fire meant we had warmth and drinkable water, giving us hope for survival. Beatrice worked efficiently, setting up a rack with branches to dry our clothes. I also placed the extra branches I had collected near the fire to dry them out, reducing their moisture so they would ignite better when needed. To ensure a continuous supply of fire, Lisa and I made 2 more trips at dawn to gather suitable branches. By the time we returned on the second trip, the old man was nowhere to be seen, wearing only her undergarments. The old lady said, "This is plenty of firewood, enough already. Take off your clothes and dry them." The old man said it was inconvenient for him here, so he took a flashlight and went deeper into the cave. It turned out that the grandfather had left to maintain decorum between men and women. When our clothes were almost dry, the grandfather emerged from the depths of the cave, excitedly saying, "There's a huge space beyond this narrow entrance." Everyone was surprised by this discovery. "We can't go in yet. The cave has been sealed too long and might contain toxic gases." Although I was happy about this discovery, we had to be cautious in our survival, especially since there were no medical resources available. As dusk approached, we divided up the food and water to fill our stomachs, arranged shifts to guard the fire, and lay down on a bed of leaves to sleep. In the middle of the night, another lifeboat arrived. Suddenly, Brianna started crying loudly, piercing the quiet of the rainy night. Everyone was awakened, and Mrs. N, who had recently become a mother, immediately picked up Brianna to comfort her and stop her crying. I, who was on duty tending the fire, suddenly felt uneasy. Staring into the night and guided by the faint moonlight, I noticed an extra lifeboat at the shore and a vague figure approaching our direction. "Someone is coming." I immediately alerted everyone. "Could it be other survivors?" Lisa asked, rubbing her eyes. "Possibly, I was not sure. But we need to be on alert." The figure approached closer, guided by the light of the fire, and I could gradually make out his features, a man in his 30s, carrying a large backpack. By now, everyone had sat up, and as he drew closer, he seemed to be assessing us. "Are you survivors from the Eastern Pearl too?" He looked relieved. "Thank God, I found kin." He said this, but his eyes were darting around, sizing up both the people and their belongings. I remembered seeing him during the chaotic moments before the ship capsized, forcefully squeezing onto a lifeboat and harshly pushing a girl off. "Oh my God, he's a survivor too," Lisa said, patting my shoulder joyfully. "Are you alone?" I asked tentatively, seeing my hesitation. He quickly replied, "Yes, just me." It was strange. Why was he the only survivor in an undamaged lifeboat? "Weren't you on the lifeboat? What happened to the other survivors?" I tried to probe further, careful not to provoke him suddenly. "Hey, it was the tsunami. The waves swept everyone else away." He gave a seemingly reasonable explanation. "Can I come in and get out of the rain?" Yet I couldn't trust him. His large backpack was conspicuously prominent. His demeanor and tone didn't seem like someone who had narrowly escaped disaster. He shoved others into the sea. If we had let him stay, we would have undoubtedly become his next prey. Seeing us silent, The man thought we consented and walked in, setting down his heavy backpack. "Do you have any food?" he asked, scanning around with his eyes. Fortunately, we had already packed everything away before going to sleep, so he didn't immediately find our supplies. "Yes," I said briskly. I noticed Beatrice giving me a look, signaling not to be too honest. "We were worried about wild animals attacking, so we stored everything in a cave," I said to Beatrice with a wink, then turned back to the man. "Oh, I'm starving, give me something to eat." The man motioned for us to share our food. Seeing hesitation on everyone's faces and no one speaking up or moving, the man dropped his pretense. He pulled out a knife and said viciously, "Bring out the food now. I'm a desperado. I'll go with you to get it," I said, pretending to be very scared, picked up a flashlight, and lit a torch from the fire. "Don't play tricks. If you lie, I'll kill all of you." He pressed the knife against my waist. We walked a few steps inside, and a very narrow entrance suddenly appeared before us. "Where's the path?" The man didn't see the space inside and was starting to get furious. "Just sidle through there, and you'll see it's quite spacious inside. That's where we've put everything," I said in a low, frightened voice. "You go in and bring it out." The man made another demand. No, it's too dark inside. I'm scared." I pretended to tremble and squeezed out some tears. "Big brother, please, let's go in together." Seeing my frail appearance, the man snorted and motioned for me to go first. I went ahead, holding the torch in one hand and tightly grasping his arm with the other. Once we were both inside the cave, I suddenly screamed, "Ah, there's a snake on the floor, help, ah." The man was startled by my scream and instinctively looked down. Seizing the moment, I swung the torch in front of his eyes, causing him to close them from the smoke. Before he could react, I hurled the torch upward with force. The torch struck the rocky ceiling with a bang, causing numerous shadows to fly about as if startled. I slipped through the narrow entrance, being slim, and managed to get out of the cave smoothly. As the torch fell, it hit the man, causing him pain, and then he was violently attacked by bats. He also tried to squeeze through the gap, but his vision blurred in the dark and the chaos of being chased by bats. He just futilely slammed his body against the rocks. I motioned for everyone to clear a path and used the faint light of the fire to guide the way in the dark. The man finally burst out of the cave, trying to run into the rain to disperse the swarm of bats. Guided by the firelight, he quickly ran towards a cliff and fell off. Everyone was shocked and sweaty. The appearance of this strange man made us think we wouldn't survive the night. If Brianna hadn't suddenly cried, he might have killed all of us in our sleep. If we had said or done anything wrong in those few minutes, his suspicion might have led him to slaughter us all. If we hadn't defended ourselves successfully, we likely would have met a grisly fate. Why does he have to do this? We're all survivors. Wouldn't it be better if we just tried to live on together? Why does he want to kill us? Lisa asked, frightened and perplexed. Human nature, it just can't stand the test. I replied succinctly. The storm grew fiercer, with rain and lightning. Yet I somehow felt that nature wasn't so terrifying after all. Sometimes, it is kind. Rain meant caves to shield us, shortages of water and food brought us berries and rainwater to nourish us in our most vulnerable moments, and darkness became our best protector. Some people are truly the most frightening of all. Alyssa, how did you know there were bats in here? Grandma asked. I didn't really know, but I saw them by chance when I entered before him, and thought maybe we could give it a try. I said, squeezing Grandma's hand. If there hadn't been any bats, I would have taken it step by step and thought of something else. It's thanks to Grandpa saying there was a big space inside that I thought of luring him in. In the worst case, I could have tried to trap him inside and buy some time, even if it meant sacrificing myself. If it could ensure everyone's safety, it would be worth it. After hearing what I had to say, the girls came over and hugged me, and Grandpa patted my shoulder. We must survive together, survive until the day help arrives, Mrs. and said, wiping her tears. I responded to them one by one, and turned to see the climbing pack left by the man. We dared not sleep deeply anymore, so we started to check the items in the climbing pack. Besides food and drinking water, he left some survival tools we didn't have, like ropes and whistles. There were also two very useful items, a satellite phone and a medical first aid kit. With the satellite phone, it meant we could make contact with the outside world, and the medical first aid kit could help us manage some injuries and illnesses. Although the situation outside was still unknown, we now had a new focus. No one could have imagined that since the day we set foot on this deserted island, we had already been living here for 12 years. 12 years can't be converted into an exact number of days, because sometimes we might forget to keep track. The storm stopped a few days after the man's death, and the climate returned to normal. Thanks to the survival tools we possessed, we gradually solved the food and water issues during the toughest times. We gathered berries, mushrooms, and wild vegetables, and made long spears to fish along the shore. We collected rainwater with filters. gathered dew with leaves in the mornings, and later made clay pots to store these precious freshwater resources. We began to explore this resource-rich island, discovered a clear stream, and relying on our own hands, cleared the land near the flat grassland to sow the seeds I had bought. I taught everyone farming techniques, although not every seed adapted well to the land and thrived. Gradually, we were able to sustain ourselves. It took us about a year to build a shelter, move out of the cave, and in the following years, continuously upgrade and fortify it. The solar panels I bought could power our communication devices, but to save energy, we agreed to use the satellite phone to contact the outside world every Monday. However, in those 12 years, we never received a response. Sometimes, we felt particularly lonely, as if we were the forgotten ones of this world. Lisa had learned Chinese. She was a chatterbox, always engaging us in conversations. Probably because for the first year she could only talk to me. Brianna, raised under our collective care, had grown into a healthy young girl, having lived on this island since she could remember. We often told her stories of the outside world, cities, and technology, which she listened to with a mix of understanding and imagination. Beatrice took great care of us, and the most delicious meals we had came from her hands. When she had free time, she often daydreamed, missing her family far away. Mrs. and had completely lost the temperament of a wealthy lady. She worked with us, cooked with us, laughed and chatted with us, and together we raised Brianna. Over these 12 years, we also said goodbye to Grandma and Grandpa. When they were alive, they were our craft experts, creating many practical items with the limited materials available on the island, but as they aged, they were taken from us by typhoid. We planted many flowers next to their graves. No one knows how many hardships we've faced, like the time I almost got killed by a wild boar that ambushed me when I first went hunting with the bow Grandpa made. But today, I can lie in the courtyard formed by our huts and bask in the sun. As usual, I used the satellite phone to contact the outside world this Monday, and this time I received a crackling echo. This feedback was unlike any before, so I called everyone else to listen. Regrettably, the signal quickly cut out again. But this also gave us great confidence that someone could hear our voices. We began trying once a day, then every 3 days, and finally back to once every 7 days. Heaven gave us a glimmer of hope, then cruelly took it away. Alyssa, isn't it also nice to stay here? I really like this place. Brianna comforted me. Yes, it has been 12 years since we left the mainland, and I have no idea what the outside world is like now. I thought I would never get used to living on an isolated island. But I gradually got used to it and even started to enjoy the simple and harmonious life of rising with the sun, resting at sunset, climbing mountains, watching the sea, fishing, and teasing birds when troubled. On a sunny afternoon, I was napping in the house when the unusual sound of a helicopter circling overhead woke me. A helicopter landed near our farmland. Captain, there are houses here. The distress signal was sent from here, reported several young people in uniforms swiftly to their superior. Is it a rescue team? Really a rescue team? I was stunned, quickly gathering everyone. Look, we're being saved. The rescue team's captain and members then entered our house and saw us dressed in leaf clothing. We received your distress signal, and after months of positioning and searching, we finally found you, said the rescue team excitedly. Beatrice, overwhelmed with emotion, burst into tears. Can we go back now? We've been here for 12 years. She could finally go back to see her long-missed family. The rescue team members looked at each other, and after a long pause, the captain spoke. You need to prepare yourselves mentally. 12 years have changed a lot. What do you mean? Beatrice asked anxiously. In these 12 years, human society has suffered many devastating blows: zombie viruses, extreme rainstorms, earthquakes, tsunamis, and the secondary disasters and viruses they brought. The captain paused. Now the global human population is less than 1 billion. Earth had lost 6/7 of its population in the apocalypse, a fact we could never have imagined, but those painful experiences are in the past, and now the order of human society is slowly being restored, especially in our country. The protection of the people has never been relaxed, the captain patiently explained. People now live in very sturdy underground cities, rebuilding society. After hearing the captain's explanation, I felt a complex mix of emotions. During the tumultuous times outside, this isolated island opened its gentle arms to us, providing the safest shelter and shielding us from nearly all dangers and disasters. On the day of departure, I was truly reluctant to leave. Do you have any belongings to pack? We need to return as soon as possible. The captain asked us to pack our belongings and board the helicopter. I took out the cured meats and dried fruits and vegetables we had made ourselves and distributed them to the rescue team members. After packing our belongings, I and the others boarded the helicopter, taking one last look at the island. I couldn't help but shed tears for the 12 years of mutual dependence and for all that it had provided us. I thought, goodbye, little island, I leave you to the native flora and fauna here. We looked down at the world from the air, now only a scarred shell of itself. In the cities, there were no skyscrapers, bustling roads, or lively crowds, only ruins that recorded the once thriving civilization. Nature had little greenery left, many areas were covered with loess, eroded by deserts. Back in human society, the few of us were arranged to live in the same underground city. It was somewhat like the Oriental Pearl we had once boarded, with many layers and different zones, where people could meet all their needs without leaving. We tried to adapt to the pace of rebuilding the post-disaster world, occasionally missing our island life. The days on the island faded from me like a misty dream, gradually being forgotten, as if they were experiences from a past life. The bustling modern society before the apocalypse now seemed like a lifetime from even before that. Many conveniences and familiar concepts that we used to take for granted have now become vague. Fortunately, we islanders also have time to gather after work, reminiscing about the life we've experienced together and sharing the new skills we've learned. Living in the present is the greatest happiness.